All right, we're going to get started soon, guys. Look at the screen for the headlines, please. Look at the screen for the headlines. Ginny Who, thank you for the retweet. Appreciate you, Ginny Who. Make the program better, Ginny Who. Thank you. Like and share the show. Tag someone in the comment section of whatever Facebook page you're watching upon. Judah, we're live on I Love CVille Facebook. We're live on 15 Twitter pages as well. And we'll confirm some of the other channels we're live on here in a matter of moments. If there's news or a headline that you would like to talk about, put it in the feed. We'll relay it live on air. We want to be the water cooler of information. We don't need to necessarily be the folks that break the information. I would rather be the commentator of information than the reporter of information. When I was working as a reporter for the Daily Progress, I always wanted to be the columnist and not the reporter. Even when my bylines were getting on A1 above the fold, this is when print was 5 days a week. This was when the Daily Progress had actual merit. Goodness gracious, this was like almost 20 years ago. I loved seeing my byline and story on A1 above the fold. I loved seeing that. A lot of the reporters, that's what they chase, is an above the fold position with their byline and their content. But deep down, if I was true or honest with you, the viewer and listener, which I try to be every day, I always wanted to be inside the A section as a columnist because I felt like I had a lot to say. Like and share the show. Judah, I will confirm on YouTube if you could confirm LinkedIn for me. I will ask you which headline you find most intriguing, as I always do. I try to give you kind of a heads up that I'm going to ask you that. We have officially scheduled the debate, ladies and gentlemen. Fred Missile and Scott Smith. Fred Missile and Scott Smith, Friday at 10:15 a.m. on Real Talk on the I Love CVille network. Keith Smith and I will be here. Scott Smith and Fred Missile running in the Samuel Miller district. One is a Democrat and one is a Republican. That is officially now scheduled a week from Friday. Put it on your calendar, 10:15 a.m. We will promote that noteworthy Q&A. I guess you can call it a Q&A, question and answer. I mean, I look at it as a debate, tomato. An important opportunity for Scott Smith, who is running as a Republican in a very Democrat district. If you're watching on YouTube, subscribe to our channel. Search the I Love CVille network. Make sure you click the bell so you're notified when we go live. We work hard for you. That's the only thing we ask in return. Judah, how you looking over there?
I think we're looking good.
You got group up and running?
Yep.
All right. I got a hard stop at about 1:15 here as we're trying to push the sale of another business forward with a potential buyer. I think we can rock and roll. I want to confirm the group here when you're ready. Bob Yarborough, hello. Thank you for watching the program. Georgia Gilmer, James Watson, Gary Palmer, Greer Achenbach, print, radio, and television, welcome to the broadcast. All right, I think we can rock and roll when you're ready, Judah.
Quiet on the set.
Good Wednesday afternoon, guys. I'm Jerry Miller. Thank you kindly for joining us on the I Love CVille show. A pleasure to connect with you guys on the I Love CVille network, a labor of love for the Miller organization. We're live in our studio on Market Street in downtown Charlottesville, storefront level. You can't miss the I Love CVille studio, excuse me. In our building, the Macklin building, where we have 24 executive offices that we manage and rent, and a portfolio of office space across Charlottesville and Albemarle County. I love connecting with business owners. I love meeting and building relationships with early stage entrepreneurs, with businesses that you, I guess, would call small cap, mid cap locally. We do work with some businesses that do one client that posts nine figures in top line revenue, but for the most part, it's the businesses locally that are doing somewhere between, I don't know, I'd say 500 grand to 100 million in top line revenue. And when working with these folks, it's the good, the bad, and the ugly of the business world in Charlottesville and Albemarle County in Central Virginia. I often say my job is two things. It's solving problems for people that cannot solve the problems on their own. That's the first thing I do, is put out fires and solve problems for people that cannot solve the problem on their own or with their staff. Second thing we do is, in a lot of ways, we're the confessional for business locally. You go into a Catholic church, you sit in it's called a confessional booth.
Yeah. Confessional. Yeah.
You walk into confessional, you pass along the good, the bad, and the ugly of what you're feeling faith-wise and what's on your mind, and to a priest, and that priest offers you counsel. In a lot of ways, that's what we do with C-suite, with founders, with entrepreneurs, with owners locally. And they trust us. Been doing this for almost 20 years. Get a lot of information. Why we get that information is because they trust us to respect their anonymity or their discretion or their secrets. And they're passing that on to us because they know we know a lot of people, and we're good at figuring out whatever the issue they have at hand. They have to pay full rate card, whether it's retainer or full freight of the hourly. But we like doing it. I love doing it. I love doing it. I love working locally here in this community. Today's show has a lot of those elements. We have UVA, we have public education, we have politics, we have office space for rent. We're about to launch a new show on the I Love CVille network. That show is going to debut next Wednesday. I think I can give it a little bit of tease on this, I would say. That show is going to feature Jeff Gaffney, most known for his time in real estate, but the show is not going to be a real estate-based show at all. It's going to be a fantastic complement to what we're doing here content-wise on the I Love CVille show. Wednesday at 10:15 a.m., that show is going to launch next week. I want you to mark your calendar for a week from Friday. 1 week from this Friday, which is what? Goodness gracious, it's August 8th. Man, we got to get the headline. I messed up on that headline. I apologize. That would be August 8th on the headline. If you can change that for me and we can use that headline moving forward, that's completely my fault. Scott Smith versus Fred Missel, a debate that you Albemarle County residents should hear. Scott Smith's a Republican. Fred Missel's a Democrat. They're going to be in studio on Real Talk with Keith Smith, with me and Keith. Keith's show has been running for, goodness gracious, almost 8 years. Unbelievable. Mm-hmm. Keith Smith's Real Talk. They're going to be in studio on a week from Friday to talk about the Samuel Miller District and why each candidate should be voted into office. Fred Missel works for the UVA Foundation. Scott Smith's a businessman. So mark your calendar for that one. A lot I want to cover on the program, including Democrats in the Commonwealth that are absolutely warning the University of Virginia Board of Visitors to not hire a new president. Some would call it warning, others would call it threatening. Democrats...
Definitely call it a threat.
Judah calls it a threat. All right, let's call it what it is. Virginia Democrats are threatening the Board of Visitors of the University of Virginia that they are, an illegitimate board, mm-hmm. and because they're not above board, pun intended, double talk there, because they're illegitimate, they cannot vote a new president into office or handpick a new president. I want to talk about that on today's show. I want to talk about Jim Ryan's community goals, which right now are stuck in quicksand, so much so that Councilor Michael Payne is saying, whoever the new president's going to be, he's probably going to push Virginia UVA's initiatives as it applies to Albemarle and the city of Charlottesville. He's probably going to de-amplify them or slow them down even more. She or he. I'm going to ask you the question. Jim Ryan's initiatives to better the county and the city and Central Virginia as a whole. Not only are they stuck in quicksand, but what are the future of those initiatives? Whether it's the housing that's being built north of town at North Fork, or the housing that's going to be built on Fontaine Avenue. Virginia, the University of Virginia had a plan to develop 1,000 to 1,500 affordable housing units, ladies and gentlemen. That's a lot of units. At Wortland Street, Piedmont, Norfolk, these projects are completely stalled. What are UVA's goals?
Someone would say they've been stalled.
Yeah, I agree with you.
I've read
Are you on a two-shot?
Not yet.
Yeah, I would say that they've been installed, but now without Ryan pushing them forward, it's cemented.
Yeah. They were slow walking them anyways. I think they're still in, pre-production after, 5 years.
Yeah, Cavalier Daily's got really good reporting on this. Pre-planning, pre-production, pre-financing.
Who knows?
Who knows? How about Oak Lawn in Fifeville, a historically mixed and working-class neighborhood? Oak Lawn University expansion. They bought Oak Lawn, and what's their plan right now for this particular location? There was some scuttlebutt and chitter chatter about childcare for Oak Lawn. What's the plan for the Federal Institute, the Federal Reserve Institute? Not Federal Reserve, the Executive Institute on Barracks Road, on Barracks Road between Barracks and Stonefield.
Yeah.
Federal Executive Institute. So we want to talk about Ryan's initiatives and stalled, quicksand, or completely cemented, or perhaps scrapped. We'll talk about that today. A damning statistic when researching today's show, 31% of Virginia fourth grade public school students are proficient in reading.
Yeah.
31% of Virginia fourth grade public school students are proficient in reading at grade level.
And there's more. There's more. We noted two of the scores, and there's another one that we didn't include that says that 29% of eighth graders meet proficiency standards in both reading and math.
I mean, geez, Louise, what the hell is going on here?
Mm-hmm.
What is going on here, ladies and gentlemen? We'll cite the source. We'll talk public schools in the Commonwealth. And it's not just across the Commonwealth here. This is impacting Albemarle County. The SOL performance in Albemarle County is down. I want to have that conversation, an uncomfortable conversation with you guys on the show today. A lot we're going to cover in the broadcast. We'll give some love to Conan Owen of Sir Speedy, Central Virginia. He's the CEO and the owner of locally owned and operated Sir Speedy of Central Virginia. If you have a logo and you need graphic design, signage, direct mail, stickers, any kind of hard marketing collateral needs, there's one choice for you. There's one choice for you, folks. And it's Conan Owen and Sir Speedy of Central Virginia. Locally owned and operated. The guy is very good at his job. I sincerely mean that. I've seen it firsthand. The banner directly behind me, the step and repeat banner that's directly behind me, is a Conan Owen Sir Speedy special. Judah Wickhauer, two-shot, if you're not already on there, the headline that most intrigues you today and why.
I mean, when I first started looking, I didn't know if there was going to be anything for us to talk about, but there's always something, and man, I don't know if I could pick one of them. Democrats making bold statements about the Board of Visitors.
Can we call it a threat?
I think we can call it a threat. I mean, calling them illegitimate? I mean, that's like, are they really trying to say that that not a single one of Youngkin's appointees are legitimately appointed? That's nuts.
Threatening the Board of Visitors that if they make a hire, they're already foreshadowing that if they make a hire with this Youngkin board, that there will be revolt and appeal and challenge of the hire.
Or in a year when
Spanberger.
their hopes in Spanberger potentially come to fruition, they'll just fire the president. I mean, that's kind of crazy too.
We'll get to those storylines here in a matter of moments, including sources to cite. Again, I encourage you to mark it on your calendar. A week from this Friday, August 8th, Scott Smith and Fred Missel in our studio for a debate, a Samuel Miller district debate, a challenged election, a contested election that will be determined in November between a Democrat and a Republican. The lead story, Judah, put the lower third on screen and set the table. This from Bacon's Rebellion. Jim Bacon does a good job. I hope he hears this. I've been told that he watches the program. Bacon's Rebellion. Is that the blog, Judah?
Yes. He does a great job. And
James Bacon often writes and contributes to the Jefferson Council. I don't always agree with everything that's on Bacon's Rebellion or the Jefferson Council, but I don't always agree with pretty much any outlet that's out there. But I source them and I read them, especially ones that offer commentary and analysis backed by research. And James Bacon absolutely does that.
Yeah.
Set the table for our first two headlines as you get the first lower third on screen and then soon rotate into the second one. Show is yours.
He starts off in an article talking about the Virginia Democratic legislators said Thursday that they would not confirm a permanent replacement for former University of Virginia President Jim Ryan, who was ousted last month under pressure from the Trump administration, which I don't think that they have the ability to do. But he goes on to cite a couple of Democratic politicians. The first, House Speaker Don Scott of Portsmouth, said the UVA board needs to listen very clearly. They probably should put a freeze on any hiring because we will not support whatever it is that they do. This is an illegitimate board right now that has been appointed and been told that they will not be appointed permanently. I mean, that's crazy. And he says he's been following Virginia politics for almost 50 years, and he thinks this is the most audacious power play he's ever seen, with the assertion that the board as a whole is illegitimate in startling in its boldness.
They're castrating Glenn Youngkin of his power in his last year in office.
Again, I think we pointed this out yesterday. Are they setting like really horrible precedents?
John Blair agreed with you. John Blair's a guy I respect tremendously. I hope he's watching the program. He agreed with you.
And then he cites Senate Majority Leader Scott CVille of Fairfax, who spelled out the Dems' threat succinctly, saying the board should not make any steps towards picking a permanent president at UVA. Come next July 1 of 2026, with this new governor, there's the potential to have 9 new members on a 16-member board, which means there would be an entirely different majority on that board of visitors deciding things. They shouldn't make decisions that are going to have long-term impact on the school right now. Those clearly sound like threats.
Those are threats. Those are threats right there. Cite the source again for the viewers and listeners.
These were House Speaker Don Scott, a Democrat in Portsmouth, and Senate Majority Leader Scott CVille, a Democrat in Fairfax.
The current board is silent. The current board is non-existent.
That is just as crazy as all of this.
Jim Ryan's hanging around. A rumor is floating around that he's strategically hanging around to see if he can get reappointed. I mentioned that on yesterday's show.
I mean, at this point, that makes sense. Why spend time looking for someone when you know you're just gonna flip the script in a year?
Do you hire the president before you hire the provost, the CEO of UVA Health, the dean of the medical school, and the CEO of the hospital?
You're saying wait until they've got their person until they've got Spanberger, and then reappoint Jim Ryan and let him choose who he wants?
Question. Yep. If you're the current board and you're appointed by Youngkin, why aren't you being implored by Youngkin to hire a president now?
Put someone in there and make the Democrats look bad when they
yank him out or her out of office.
Bacon makes a great point later on in his article where he says any president chosen by the current Youngkin-dominated board would have to factor into his or her thinking the strong possibility that he or she would be fired after less than a year in the position.
Which why would you take that job?
May make it very hard for the group that's recently been set up to find a new president and an interim president at the same time. Do they really want to do that job?
So has this backfired on the Jefferson Council? Has this backfired on those looking to ouster Jim Ryan? Has this backfired on the Trump administration that used the DOJ influence and leveraged federal funding to push Jim Ryan out of office?
I don't know. This just sounds like warning shots after warning shots. It doesn't. We don't have any evidence that the Board of Visitors had anything to do with President Ryan giving his resignation. And if somebody should...
Well, unless, so you discount the efforts of Burt Ellis because he was no longer on the board at the time that Ryan retired? Do you say that the efforts of Burt Ellis were strictly done in a silo and did not influence other board members?
But what did Burt Ellis do that would have convinced Jim Ryan to give up the seat?
The pressure the council did with the ads in the Richmond Times-Dispatch and other statewide newspapers, the constant commentary on the Jefferson Council website, screaming at the top of Carter's Mountain that Jim Ryan was doing a disservice to the university and what Jefferson intended the university to be. I mean, I'm just trying to play devil's advocate with you here.
Okay, but
could the board not have gotten into Jim Ryan's ear and say, hey, don't resign. We'll figure out this federal funding debacle together? Other schools have said no and turned their back to the federal funding.
I don't
the
see
federal funding the federal funding that was being leveraged, extorted against the University of Virginia by the Trump administration was what? Somewhere between 6 and 8.5% of their yearly budget.
Okay, but playing devil's advocate to your devil's advocate,
okay,
you bring Jim Ryan back. Don't you just bring back all of that threat of the administration?
Yeah, and then eventually the decision has to be made: is the 6 to 8.5% of our yearly budget, this federal funding, is that enough to? Does that enough monetary influence for the for the Trump administration to determine what we're going to do here in Charlottesville at UVA?
Yeah.
I mean,
but
can
then,
we go and fundraise this money? Can we do a fundraising campaign that's built around this?
But they could have figured that out with Jim Ryan still in.
Did they have enough time to figure that out? Did someone? I mean, think about it this way: can't the university?
You're saying he left the seat, left the presidency to give them time to figure this out?
Left the presidency to give the university time to figure this out, understanding that Spamberger was probably going to win the election. That this time next year, there's going to be 9 new board members, lingers around on a 14-month sabbatical where he's getting paid $1 million for 14 months to do nothing. His backup plan is the $750,000 a year salary he'll have with the UVA Law School, where he's working half the time and has no stress teaching kids in the law school.
Yeah.
He currently, for half the country... Academics are so liberal. For the vast majority of academics nationally see Jim Ryan as a martyr. He can walk on water.
Yeah.
Because academia is so liberal.
Right.
So look at what I've been thinking a lot about this. Look at what Jim Ryan has done. Jim Ryan resigns. He is a superhero in national academia.
Yeah.
Literally, he's wearing a cape right now.
Mm-hmm.
He's paid $1 million for 14 months, $1 million plus, because $1 million is for 12 months. Then he's got 2 extra months of sabbatical. Mm-hmm. So call it $1.2 million, whatever the number is, back of the napkin. Mm-hmm. Then he has a job at the law school at $750,000 a year for teaching some kids law.
Waiting in backup in case.
He says, I couldn't risk the federal funding being lost. I did what was best for UVA, not what was best for me.
Mm-hmm.
Has a home in Earlysville, is hanging out in Charlottesville. Has a direct line to the Spanberger campaign. Understands the political winds in Richmond.
Yeah.
Democrats are coming out right now saying if you hire a president, we're going to potentially force that president to be fired, to quit or to resign or fired this time next year.
Yeah.
What viable candidate's going to want to take this job?
That's what I asked before.
Who would take this job?
Yeah.
After seeing what happened to Jim Ryan, after knowing you're in the crossfire of the DOJ,
Yeah.
who would take this job? The effing BOV is not even meeting anymore.
Right.
I
wonder if are they just checked out?
I don't think they're just checked out. I think, and I keep using this word, I think they've been castrated of power. I think they've been castrated of power. I'll throw this to you here, okay? You ready for this?
Mm-hmm.
Did this plan backfire? Did the Jefferson Council plan to oust Jim Ryan, did it completely backfire?
I think
because their plan was predicated, was rooted on a replacement for Ryan being hired before Youngkin's term is up. Because they knew the Youngkin appointees were conservative, and Youngkin had a plan of eradicating DEI from UVA. His plan was not return single sanction honor code. His plan was not make UVA affordable again. His plan was not to shed the new Ivy moniker, the new Ivy League moniker. His plan was to eradicate DEI from UVA.
Yeah.
And he got that done. The plan that was the most important piece for the Jefferson Council's ouster of Jim Ryan was a replacement of Ryan before Youngkin's term is up. And that is looking less and less likely. Did the plan backfire?
I mean, I can't imagine it, but it seems to me like there was just no coordination in any of this. Between Youngkin, the Board of Visitors, and the Jefferson Council, it seems like there were a bunch of people doing a bunch of things, and none of them were consulting each other.
And you know what?
Which I can't believe is true.
And you know what they're missing? They're missing the whip, the Burt Ellis role to coordinate all this.
You're probably
the businessman who's the CEO from Atlanta who was able, Burt, I hope you hear this. When Burt was fired from the Board of Visitors, the whip, the coordinator with the Jefferson Council, the Youngkin administration, the Board of Visitors, and the headhunters, recruiting firms, the back channeling for a new president, that position, that man, that woman, that role is not present.
Yeah.
And everyone that's on the board now does not have the either the gumption or the courage, some might call it ego,
to be that whip.
To be that whip right now, for fear of scarlet lettered in the court of public perception.
Yeah.
This may very well go into this time next year, which would be crazy.
Yeah.
Because that would also potentially mean no provost, no CEO of UVA Health, no dean of the medical school, and no CEO of the hospital. Viewers and listeners, let us know your thoughts. Put them in the feed. Judah Wickower, add some comments. Logan Wells-Colelo, welcome to the broadcast. Owen Brenner, welcome to the broadcast. Print, radio, and television, including some in Richmond, watching the broadcast as we speak right now. Very curious. We should get the Jefferson Council guys back on the show.
Yeah.
I'll reach out to Mr. Ellis to come back on the program.
That would be great.
And see if we can coordinate an interview with Mr. Ellis on this, because I can assure you he's going to have something to say.
I would love to hear his perspective.
Let's go to number one in the family, Deep Throat. Deep Throat says, I think Jim Ryan's departure is 95% the Trump administration pressure. Look, Columbia just paid $400 million, and Shafik is long gone. It isn't just UVA. Claudine Gay is gone from Harvard. Liz McGill is gone from Penn. And like you said, it's not like Ryan's tenure was going so great anyhow. And now all of that is forgotten, and he is a hero with a cushy job. I think you're right that there are no traditional candidates that are willing to take this president job now. But what about a totally political candidate? What about Ken Cuccinelli, knowing he'll serve for 9 months and he will use those 9 months to kick the bejeebus out of the University of Virginia, like the right wing always does? If you remember, when Cuccinelli was appointed, I said, is Cuccinelli a replacement for Ryan? I said, Cuccinelli, is he a replacement for Ryan? If Ken Cuccinelli is appointed in any kind of interim capacity to this role, you would have some of the most significant levels of protests we've ever seen in Charlottesville history, especially with students slated to return in 3 weeks.
No doubt.
I still think if you're picking an interim president, a more neutral candidate like a Ken Elzinga, the esteemed economics professor that's been there for more than 50 years, could be your interim candidate.
I think it depends on. I mean, Deep Throat makes some interesting points, and I think it depends on what your ultimate goal is in selecting an interim president. Like Deep Throat said, if you want to shake things up, if the Board of Visitors wants to shake things up, then a political appointment might be the way to go. I'm with you. I would think that that most of the interested parties would want a neutral
stabilize the organization,
president. Yeah.
the city council
Get some
euphemism.
stability and set the course for getting the school back on track.
John Blair's comments. Ginny Hu, very curious of what you think of all this, Ginny Hu. John Blair's comment, number 2 in the family. Jerry, we are setting up the mutually assured destruction of UVA if Spanberger and the Democrats do this. That's not a partisan statement, that's a fact. As Judah said, what happens when you have a D governor and an R House or Senate? Just block all the appointments? It's not healthy for UVA. I think what people don't realize here is that none of this is going on at Virginia Tech. Ask yourself why. One thing about those UVA community initiatives, Columbia just gave the Trump administration, DOJ, $200 million. The New York Times reports that Harvard is willing to give them $500 million. What if UVA is to fork over 9 figures? The easiest pot of money to take such a settlement out is the community initiatives pot. So what John Blair is saying, if UVA says no to the federal funding, and I believe that number is somewhere between $300 and $400 million.
Yeah.
Is that what you remember?
Yeah, I seem to remember something like 368 million.
Yeah, somewhere between 300 and 400 million contributions from the feds to the University of Virginia. 300 to 400 million is a lot of money, okay? I'm not saying it's not a lot of money, but that's like, you're talking about a drop in the bucket of a $5 billion plus yearly budget, ladies and gentlemen. And the University of Virginia, one thing it's able to do is fundraise. So all it would have to do is create this fundraising campaign.
Oh, I could imagine.
How easy of a brand is this to build?
One or two alumni deciding that screw the Trump administration and making up that difference.
How easy a brand is this to build? I could do this right now. We are saying no to federal funds. We are turning our back on the Trump administration, and we need to fundraise $400 million to offer the University of Virginia full autonomy in its curriculum, its initiatives, its efforts, and who it's going to hire in its C-suite positions.
I'd be willing to bet they'd have the money in less than a week.
They'd have that money in a second. You'd go to 8 or 10 people and raise that money.
Yeah.
If you build that fundraising strategy, we want to say no to Trump at UVA and the federal funding. We need you to replace $300 to $400 million, which now that I think about it, just doing some quick math off the top of my head, you're talking like, is that 6%? 7%?
Something like that.
$5 billion is $500 million is 10%. $250 million is 5%. You're talking 6 to 8% right there.
Yeah.
UVA could raise that in a heartbeat.
Mm-hmm.
Wild times going on right now.
No doubt.
Absolutely wild right now. And the students return in less than 3 weeks.
They're not going to be happy.
Is an interim president going to be named before the students return? The students return, I sent this to clients of mine that are buying a business on the UVA corner. I'm excited to make that announcement in the near future. I'm waiting on them to make the announcement and offer the green light. Students arrive August 21. Classes start August 26. And the first UVA football game is the 31st of August. If you're just tuning into the broadcast, Virginia Democrats are threatening the UVA Board of Visitors, calling it an illegitimate board and saying you have no foundation legally to hire the next president.
Yeah.
And if you do, we will oust the next president.
Within a year.
This time next year. Documenting the trail to basically taint the hiring pool. They are tainting the hiring pool is what they're doing right there.
Mm-hmm.
Next headline, what do you got? And this is a perfect segue into the Jim Ryan initiatives.
Yeah.
If UVA has $300 to $400 million that is potentially leveraged against it, $300 to $400 million that's potentially at risk, should it move forward without Trump's support, without the Fed's support? What does that do to the 1,000 to 1,500 units of affordable housing that the University of Virginia is doing north of town at Fontaine and on Wortland Street?
Mm-hmm.
At North Fork, Wortland Street, and on Fontaine. These units, now Judah made a very good point, these units have been stuck in pre-development with design and financing still in the planning stages, as the Cavalier Daily is reporting today. Fantastic article on it.
Wasn't this part of their 2030 plan?
Yes.
And it's been ongoing for half of its existence it's been ongoing since, 2020, I think?
It's been, Jim Ryan, when he came into office, created community organizations with community stakeholders. Mark Lorenzoni of Ragged Mountain Running Shop is one of probably the most obvious or vocal, noteworthy community, not noteworthy, but one of the most outspoken is a better word, of those community stakeholders. Keith Smith was on one of those committees. And 2030 was the 2030 plan, and those 1,000 to 1,500 affordable housing units are literally nowhere close to materializing.
Yeah.
Another example of the local initiatives was the purchase of the Oak Lawn Mansion in Fifeville for a child care facility for the local Fifeville community. What would happen to that Jim Ryan initiative if it turned its back, UVA, on the federal funds? And of course, the most noteworthy initiative that the community, city council in particular, Michael Payne in particular, has been pushing is the payment in lieu of taxes. Yeah. There will be no pilot if UVA has to come up with $300 to $400 million.
Yeah.
And you swear, you say there's going to be no pilot altogether, and I'm inclined to believe you on that.
I mean,
I'm angry there.
The way it's looking with pilot, I don't think has ever been really on the table, and it sounds like most of these apartment houses were never going to get. Well, who knows? Maybe they'd get built eventually, but it doesn't sound like a whole lot's going to be affected. And you mentioned Councilor Payne. He's
Councilor Payne was talking to local media last night.
He was commenting on the fact that he doesn't think that anyone replacing Jim Ryan it doesn't sound like he has a whole lot of hope. That I believe he said something to the effect that Jim Ryan has been more open to discussions,
to dialogue. He said
than any other UVA president,
which is
has
true.
Been. And so, what are we going to get with the next one? Is it at all likely that the next UVA president is going to be more open to discussion than Jim Ryan? Seems unlikely.
But Payne's thinking is based on a mindset that the current board is going to hire the new president. And his thinking is tied to Republicans, Youngkin appointed Republicans hiring the next president, where you and I and the viewers and listeners are looking beyond the obvious.
That's fair, but just because it's not taking into account that it might not be a Republican appointee doesn't, I think, increase the likelihood that the person chosen will be more open to discussion than Jim Ryan. I think Jim Ryan was just a special case. He was willing to open up and talk to Charlottesville and Albemarle County about partnerships.
Yeah, and that's why he came out of the gate so beloved.
Yeah. But nothing really came of it.
Some would say it's phony.
We never got pilot. We still haven't gotten any of these.
The affordable housing.
Yeah.
Nothing's materialized with Oak Lawn.
That's not to say that...
The Federal Executive Institute went against the city, not UVA's fault, though.
Yeah, and none of that is to say that that Jim Ryan was, prevaricating and just trying to put on a good show.
Right.
But who knows?
Crazy times right now.
It might just be that the president doesn't have the ability to make those decisions ultimately.
I think the president doesn't have the ability, but the president has the ability to shepherd forward.
Yeah.
Not the ability to do it his or herself, but the ability to push it forward.
Yeah.
And he got stuck so much in crisis management that he wasn't able to do community management.
That could be fair.
Next headline. What do you got?
I've got kids in VA barely holding on.
I want to spend 5 minutes on this topic. Rattle off the 3 or 4 one-hitters on performance with Virginia Public Schools.
We've got, these are the most recent NAEP scores. That stands for National Assessment of Educational Progress. And they are showing that only 31% of Virginia's fourth graders are proficient in reading, and only 40% of Virginia's fourth graders are proficient in math. And even worse, only 29% of eighth graders meet proficiency standards in both reading and math.
That should be the headline we had on screen in the rundown, not the 2 we picked. Could we add that headline real quick to the rundown as an additional headline in post-production?
Yeah.
What was the eighth grade one? Jeez Louise. And can you put that headline on screen here? Are you
my problem is that one doesn't break it down.
With reading and math specifically?
Yeah, it just says that 29% of eighth graders meet proficiency standards in both reading and math.
But why I think the eighth grade one is more significant is because they're further along in the learning process. With the fourth graders, you at least you're early enough where maybe you could correct it. Fourth grade is still deep into the process. What's the eighth grade one? And please put that lower third on screen.
29% of eighth graders meet proficiency standards in both reading and math.
Proficiency, I'm writing this down. Standards in both reading. If you're a parent in Virginia and your kids go to public schools, I want you to hear the statistic that we are talking about right now. 29% of eighth graders in Virginia public schools are proficient in both reading and math. 29% of Virginia public school eighth graders meet proficiency standards in both reading and math. And the proficiency standards in these tests are not elevated standards.
Right.
These are like...
Yeah, they're not talking about they're not even mentioning which grade level. They're just saying that proficiency...
Passing the SOL is not an indication of academic success.
And they go... This is another article in Bacon's...
This is a travesty.
In Bacon's Rebellion, but this is by Derek Max. He goes on to state that our state standards of learning, SOL tests, tell a very different and dangerously misleading story. Virginia's SOL tests label students proficient even when their skills are far below grade level, and parents are left in the dark believing their children are on track when they are not.
I'll tie this locally to Charlottesville, Albemarle, and Central Virginia. There is a reason why private school enrollment is upticking significantly and why the private schools locally are raising tuition, why the private schools locally are doing capital fundraising campaigns to build new buildings to house more students. Private schools all over Charlottesville, Albemarle, and Central Virginia are doing this. The tuitions are more costly and people are paying them. The infrastructure is expanding. The enrollments are up. The quality of life for students is up compared to public schools. Locally, Weldon Cooper predicted public school enrollment in Charlottesville and Albemarle County to decrease, to go down. It's on the Weldon Cooper website. Mm-hmm. And you wonder why that's the case? It's the politicization of education. It's the feeling of unsafety, a feeling of safety or not having safety in public schools. And it's 29% of 8th graders meet proficiency standards in both reading and math in Virginia public schools.
Yeah.
That is an absolute travesty right there.
It is. But despite, I've got to say this, despite the, despite what this says about the schools, despite the damning evidence about the schools, I feel like this says quite a lot about the students' parents as well.
I don't buy that as much. I do think the parents, as a parent, you need to have buy-in from the parents 100%. And as a parent, having a 2-parent household versus a 1-parent household makes a significant difference. But I'm not going to say that the parents of today are vastly inferior or vastly crappier than the parents of a generation ago or 2 generations ago.
That's fair. You're
it's
saying
not.
Parents have always been
Parents
crappy.
have always been this level of parents. Parents have always been this level of parents. We can't say this generation of parents with the kids that are in public schools just suck compared to the parents of the last generation or of our generation when we were kids. They haven't changed. Maybe you can make the argument that this is a collateral damage of screens and iPhones and internet and YouTube and social media. I'll give you that. I will absolutely give you that. Ginny, who's watching the program, she says this: I recently asked for the biggest question people have about homeschooling. Several educators say they worry if children are really learning. The concern is always interesting to me because they aren't talking about the large number of students public schools fail to serve.
Yeah.
She also says for homeschoolers who do end of the year testing, the state can only require that they score above the 23rd percentile in language, arts, and math because that's all the public schools require. The majority of homeschoolers regularly score 85% or higher. Unbelievable.
Yeah. 23%. That's an insanely low number. I mean, if you're going to set the bar low.
I'm most flabbergasted by that. And here you got the Albemarle County Board of Supervisors giving themselves a 100% plus raise.
Doing a great job, guys.
Unbelievable. All right, I got a 1:30 call. That's the Wednesday edition of the show. We got a new show launching next week, Wednesdays at 10:15 a.m. with Jeff Gaffney, a non-real estate show. His content's going to be a perfect complement to this network. We have Scott Smith and Fred Missel, a debate on Real Talk a week from this Friday at 10:15 a.m. The content, we're continuing to try to do our best to give you the most quality, localized content possible on the I Love CVille network. This is not our bread and butter revenue-wise, but it is something that we enjoy doing. Judah Wickhauer has been on point lately. My name is Jerry Miller. Thank you kindly for joining us.